afternoon, everybody, and actually, good morning for some of you. I know we are hitting some different time zones, but my name is Catherine Rinker, and I am with the National White Collar Crime Center. I am manager of the Investigative Support Section, and I'm going to serve as your moderator / facilitator / if anything happens and you need help, you're going to contact me and Cameron Elliott here. We will not be presenting the program, but we are here to set it up for you and to go over some housekeeping for you. The event that you've signed on to today, the title is ILooKIX, Bulk Load Lists and Extreme File Recovery. Our presenters are John Sadowski and Scott Panko. Scott will be the primary presenter, and John is there to assist him. They are two of our renowned computer crimes specialists with the National White Collar Crime Center. For those of you who don't know much about what we do, just real briefly, the mission that we subscribe to is to support state, local, tribal, territory law enforcement primarily in the investigation, prevention, and prosecution of economic crimes. We do that through support in investigative support, through training, of which the Computer Crime Section delivers a tremendous volume of training programs, through our intelligence and financial training and research. So let's talk a little bit about housekeeping, and some of you are going to be logging on as I'm going through this, and we'll try to also follow up with chat. But you all are muted. We will not be hearing from you as far as your audio goes. However, we would like to hear from you through chat or Q&A if you have any problems. I'll direct your attention to the top of your screen. There's a drop-down. You should have a drop-down where you see some options available to you. One window is chat. If you click on that, you can type a message that will be received and viewed by me as the host, or perhaps also by Cameron Elliott, who's working with us here. And I see right now somebody cannot hear anything on their end, so they won't be able to hear me say that. Some of you, and yes, some of you can hear me, great, but what I need you to do is you can call in and then you can mute your computer, because you might get some reverberation feedback between the computer and the telephone. Also, if you haven't called in, and of course you won't be able to hear me say this, but perhaps you need to unmute your computer. We have had problems in the past with buffering. That might be on your end as far as the bandwidth goes, and for that I will apologize. We will also make sure that we give you the phone number to call in. So if you have any problems with that, I'll actually, Cameron, go ahead, and if you'll type up that phone number for them to call in the chat area, they can dial in. So some of you are using chat. That's perfect. Thank you. There's another thing that you can access. If you don't see a box for Q&A, over on the right-hand side of your drop-down at the top, there should be an arrow. When you click on that, you have some additional options available to you, of which one of them would be Q&A. We're going to save time at the end of this event to answer your questions. Cameron and I will be collecting them as we go, putting them together, and then we'll be asking Scott to address those at the end. So please don't wait to the end. That doesn't help us help you. If you have a question as you're going through it, pop it in the Q&A, and we'll collect those. We may not be able to address all of them during today's program, but we can make sure that Scott and John receive those so that they could address them after this event. Let me also stress that this is a product demonstration, and Scott will speak to the particulars of that. Some of you may never have seen this program, and you might have a hard time following along. Others of you may be experienced in using it, and he's going to show you some features that are specific to the program. So let me then pass to Scott and John, and have at it, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Can you see my desktop okay?
I can.
Okay, cool. Get started here. We're going to work with ILooKIX or KIX. It is a full-featured forensic suite produced by Perlustro, and you can find it at perlustro.com. At the end of this webinar, you'll be sent to a web page that is for NW3C's commercial product training. On that web page, there is a link to Perlustro. So that's the advertising side of it. As Catherine told you, we're NW3C. We train in computer forensics. Earlier, or during the announcements, you should have received or given a link to receive and download a data file. We'll be using that data file later when we go through and work with the Extreme File Recovery, or XFR. What you'll need to do with that particular program is unzip it and store it someplace. Remember where you stored it, because you'll need to go back to that location. Also, if you're going to follow along with the bulk load list, you'll probably need a small thumb drive, 2 to 4 gigabytes. We're going to do a practice run at creating a bulk load list so you can see how it works, and we're going to talk about them. To get started, for those of you who have never seen iLook before, we're going to do a quick review of the ILooKIX interface. We're going to talk about case creation real briefly so that you can actually start creating, working with cases. And then we're going to get into creating the bulk load list. After that, we will go and start working with the XFR. When all that's said and done, we're going to jump in and do questions and answers. Anything there I need to continue to cover?
Nope, you covered everything.
Okay, good. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump in and take a look at the interface. As you can see in my upper right corner here, I have ILooKIX or KIX. That's the icon. I'm going to double click on that. This will dump us first to a splash screen. Splash screen shows you some information about iLook. There are 3 main windows. Over here on the left-hand side, this is the Explorer pane. Upper right corner, this is the list pane. And down here in the lower right corner is the viewer pane. In the Explorer pane, you'll get to explore, sort of like walking through a Microsoft Windows directory structure. And you can select on files and folders inside the directory structure, and whatever folder you click on will show up over here in the viewer, in the list pane. So then you can click on an item in the list pane, and if it's a picture or a Word document or some sort of file that iLook will be able to describe and show to you, you can view it in the view pane as a hex view, a natural view, or if you want to see the actual file or evidence items properties, you can click on properties. As you can see right now, I've got it set up to look at the log. The log tells you we are working with the version 4.079 of iLook. I have 203 days remaining on my particular license, and there's some information about the SQL server that is running. Okay, so we've got the pane view there. I'd like to talk to you about this middle bar right here. Right here in the center. This pane view changes the view on the Explorer pane. Right now it's set up to show the file system view. I can go to the category view, an email Explorer view, a container Explorer view, etc. We will mostly be staying in the file system and category view. Along the bottom here of the list pane, we get listing for files. When we go to the email pane, which we want this time, you can look at various emails that are being available. Task progress tells you if there's any tasks running so you can see how well they're doing. And then you can also jump to help. You can see we've got some other tabs along the bottom. I want to jump up here to the top menu line. We got case, open case. Obviously, if you already have a case running, you can open a case. You can see I've got a couple categories set up to categorize the cases that come into me. New case, fairly self-explanatory. We'll be using that here in a minute. If I have a case open and I want to close down iLook or I want to go into another case, close is the feature I click on. If I already have a case created and I need to change the details for some reason, and we'll talk about the details here in a moment, I can go in and edit those case details. Once a case is finished and I want to get it out of my system, I can delete a case and it'll actually be removed from the iLook database system that's maintained. Or I can do the manage, where I can archive a case for later retrieval back into iLook. Next item over is evidence. Once we've created a case, we go through and we can add evidence into the case, and there are 4 different options. An image set, which is obviously images that have been made of some hard drive, thumb drive, whatever. We can actually add a physical device, which we'll be doing with that 2 gigabyte thumb drive that I ask you to have. You can have folders of information or add a specific file. ILooKIX has been renowned for its imager, the iLooKIX imager. It can be created in a CD version or a thumb drive version from within the program. And this tab is where you'll do that. Under Setup, you have the look and feel where you can change the screen to make it look more pleasant to you. Customization. We have viewable panels. You can see almost all of them are currently viewable. There's one here that is not shown, Disk Key View. You actually want to look at the various sections of a disk if you've imaged the disk. The disk view, which you can see in the view pane right here, has different color coding, and this gets you to the keys for it. Options. These are the various options that are available within iLook to customize. The general ones here are how to set up dates and times, maximize viewer objects, and other features of iLook. We have the advanced view, which is stuff that can be set up ahead of time to work with post-file system processing. Once you've brought a piece of hard drive into the system and the file system has been identified and parsed through, now what do you want to do with it? And that's what the advanced tab does for you. We do have a number of custom viewers you can add in. These just happen to be the ones I like. I know we all have a number of different settings we like or different viewers we like. Here's where you add them in. We have some other items over here that I'm not going to get into too much. If you want to learn more about them, we talk about each and every one of them in our training in great detail in our training. But what I do want you to click on is the containers and meta objects. Containers and meta objects, each one of these is one or two different, these are different types of objects that iLook will parse through. And the one I want to make sure is available and checked for mine is ISO. If yours is checked, great. If not, please check it. Overall, these are the general options for iLook. We'll go ahead and cancel out of that because I'm already set up. Next item we have is ILooKIX Boot. ILooKIX Boot is a feature that's in development for Perlustro. Once it's initialized or implemented into the entire system, you will load in a bootable image, such as a hard drive, and click on ILooKIX Boot, and ILooKIX Boot will start your image inside of VirtualBox automatically. I'm eager to see that one come out. Help, obviously, it's a help system. Inside the help system, you also have an option for showing a debug window. Inside debug, they do have one feature I thought was really spectacular. If you have sections of an MFT that you need to parse out, you can run it through iLook. But that's the setup. We'll cover one or two more items. Over on the far left-hand side, you have the Toolbox tab. Underneath this are analytical and parsing functions available within iLook. Hashing, indexing, search keys. You want to do salvage, which is carving to anybody else. We have the analysis functions. Some of those are very interesting. If you take a course, you'll find that some of them just are spectacular. The ones we're going to use today are in mini apps. So a little later when I tell you to go to mini apps, you'll click on toolbar. You'll click on the little double arrows for mini apps. And then we're going to run a mini app. iLook has an integrated development environment that allows you to create programs to do additional things that it isn't currently scheduled or programmed to do. NW3C actually did that, and if you come to our class, we actually partition out or parse out partition tables to show you how it's done. I'm going to close the mini app that I opened. Okay. Well, welcome to NW3C.
So Scott, in the training, will we go over in detail everything from that toolbox and learn the ins and outs of all those analytical programs?
We go through almost every single one of them. It's a 5-day course and it's packed. Okay, moving on. First thing we need to do, well, let me back up a bit. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to create a case. Once we get a case created, we're going to import or we're going to add an evidence item to the case. This will be the device, our thumb drive. We'll load it in, and then we're going to do an image of it. And what we're going to do at that point is make many, many segments of the thumb drive. They're going to be small. From that, we're going to create a bulk load list and load it into the system. That's what we're going to be doing here for the next about 20 minutes. So the first thing we want to do, I want you to click on the case button, new case, and for the case name, call this bulk load list training. That's the name. That's going to be the case name. Obviously, you're not going to call your case's bulk load list training. You're going to have a case number or something meaningful to you. For case description, I want to use the same name. You may want to add things in like when you're creating your own cases, suspects, where the case came from, the arresting officers, that sort of information. You can also include that information in case notes. iLook will fill in case started, and when the case is archived, case archived. Once you click on case group, earlier you saw that list of different groups I had for my cases. This is where I organize my work by different categories. In this particular case, I want this case to show up under webinar demos. Next tab over is case investigator. We have myself and John Sadowski. I want to select myself as the case investigator for this case. If you need to add some more, you have this button up here in the upper left corner of that box that is there to add new investigators. You can remove them, or you can edit their details. Now I want to create a case control point. iLook is going to go out and it's going to look at the evidence we give it, and it's going to parse through it and pull out evidence and start doing the magic that is the forensic suites. But it needs some place to put that data. What I'll need you to do is either send this out to a separate drive, which I'm going to do, or create a folder or some location on a drive that has about 20 gigabytes of space. That should be enough for today. For me, on my PC here, I am going to create a case under bulk load list. Wherever you're going to do this, remember, you're going to need to create a case. iLook will not allow you to create a case under the root directory of any logical volume. You have to create a folder. To ensure that you can do that, iLook has this little button up here in the upper left corner that is there to create a new folder. Click on that button. I'm going to call this folder bulk load list training. And we'll press enter. This is where all the information for this case will be residing. We'll select it. I'm going to click OK. At this point, iLook will go out to that folder that we've created. It will create all the little subfolders and subdirectories it needs to work. And it will present this as an open case. At this point, you now have your first open case. Now, that thumb drive you have, we're going to add that into the device. To do this, you plug it into a write protect device. iLook itself won't write to the device, but we know how Windows is. It may write to your device, and we don't want that. So obviously you need some sort of device to write protect your thumb drive. However, you might want to do that. Before you plug it in, though, I want you to go to Evidence, Add Device. So click on Evidence, and click on Add Device, and iLook will show you an Add Device dialog box. Click on the tab that says Attach Device. In there you can see I got a physical drive 0, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go ahead and close this, cancel at this point. I'll plug my thumb drive in through my write protect device. And we'll go back to that Evidence tab. I'm going to add my device one more time. And we'll go to that Attach Device tab. So you can see now I have physical device 4. Whatever your number was, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, that's the device I would like you to select. You do that by clicking in the little box on the far left-hand side, right next to the device. Take a step back, go to Auto Processing tab, right next to the attached device. Right now, we're just going to set up something to show how the bulk load list works. We don't want to do any processing on this device. So in the upper right corner, you have this option to say, Enable post-processing. I want you to uncheck that. What's going to happen here is ILooKIX will literally just bring in the device. We have to give it a name, though. So I'm going to head over to Standard Info. And we're going to call this Source Data. And for immediate description, thumb drive. And if you happen to have a number for it, and this is going to be directly attached to iLook. The rest of the information iLook would load up for us. At this point, click on the OK button. And iLook will load this device into the program. Get there real quick because it's literally just the data itself. You can click on that item we just brought in, disk view, and we can actually, if we wanted to, see the data out in the drive. There isn't much on this one. Matter of fact, I got nothing. Thought I grabbed the one full of data. That's okay. This is just a demo and we're showing how to do this. Actually, there you can see I've got a little data in hex for the very first block. At this point, I'd like you to click on the thumb drive we just added to the system. I want you to do a right click on this. Right click on it. And iLook has a number of different things you can do with a particular device. We can delete the image. We don't want to do that. Probe for partitions. iLook will go through and see if it can find any partitions on this device possible. The one we want to work with right now is image media. So I want you to select that option, image media. When you do that, a dialog box will come up and ask you what you want to do. We're going to image everything on this thumb drive. We're going to save it in the iLooKIX format. We can change it to VMware if we'd like to, but iLooKIX is just fine. Now, you should have a checkbox next to maximum segment size. I have mine set for 128 megabytes. That's a very small chunk for an image. But what I'm trying to do is get a number of different chunks available for the bulk load list. And I'll explain that in a minute once we get this process started. We don't want it compressed. We don't want it encrypted. Okay, we can get a shot one of it. We need to select a destination folder. Now, for that, I want you to click on that 3 ellipses to the right-hand side. Navigate out to where you want to store this data. This would be that folder I told you to create, or location I told you to find, where you'd have about 20 gigabytes. These are small thumb drives. We're only going to use about 2 gigabytes at this time. I'm going to send mine out to my bulk load list. And I'm going to make a new folder here. I'm going to call mine bulk load image. This was where we're going to store the image we're taking of this thumb drive. I'll press enter. I'm going to click on the OK button. Now I've got a name here that says bulk load image. This is a holdover from the last time I was practicing this. iLook left it this way for a reason. If you're going to be doing images from within iLook, you're going to be doing, they anticipate you're going to be doing numbers of them. So you're going to increment. This is a way to increment it. So for this one, bulk load image, 01. And for notes, demo bulk load is just fine. You can add in whatever you'd like to when you're doing this for real. Okay, I'm about ready to start. We'll wait here for a moment for other people to catch up. I'm going to get started. I'm going to minimize iLook for a second. Let it run in the background. I'm going to go to my webinar documents. And before I can really explain what a bulk load list is, I need to explain something else first. An image set list. An image set list was created in iLook for unusual image numbering systems. On your screen here, on the far left-hand side, I've got decimal sequence, so we can all understand what's going on here. On this particular image, I have 101 chunks, and it starts at 1 and goes through 99, then it goes to 100 and 101. The next one over, before I go to that, the decimal sequencing is what iLook expects. The next one over, this one right here, that highlighting didn't work real well. We have an image set 001, 002, and so forth in hex numbers. Don't know any program that does that, but it gives you the idea. What happens at 09F for the next one? It actually increments by 1, but iLook is expecting that incrementation to occur in decimal. So there has to be some way to tell iLook the correct sequence to go to see the image segments in the right order. And that's what an image set list does for us. It allows iLook to add in each segment, each chunk of the image in order. Here I've created an alphabet sequence. You can see A, B, all the way down to X, Y, Z, and then we go to A, A, B. Obviously, that's not going to be decimal sequencing. The final column here is an image date sequence. I've actually done this with Linux DD, where I've had an image name followed by date and time for each chunk. I was doing some testing at the time, but certainly it can be done. But that's what an image set list is. The chunks of an image in the correct sequence for iLook to load in. Well, they took that concept and went a little farther. they create a thing called a bulk load list. As you can see, what happens here is we start with the very first block, very first chunk of an image, and then we tell iLook each image chunk in order for the system. This is what we're going to create. A couple things you need to identify. First off, this isn't quite right for the full bulk load list. These little spaces should not occur. I added them for clarity purposes. The very first chunk on each one starts with a volume letter. And you can see here I've got file images, multi-segment raw, .001. They're all on the K drive. Next time through, I created a smart image, and I could only get 3 of the chunks on the K drive. I had to go to my L drive. So I was able to tell iLook to go from one particular volume to the next one to keep adding the chunks in. Here I have just one single chunk, and below that you can see I've got that same process going on all the rest. The little dash there tells the system these are sub-chunks of the original. Okay. I want to jump out to another one here real quick. I have this F drive images.bll. I want to do a right click on this, and I want to edit with a program called Notepad++. This is a real life bulk load list. I just used this a little earlier. At the end of this particular this chunk section of the presentation, I will show you what this bulk load list did. Let me see if I can shrink it up just here a bit. These were a variety of different types of thumb drives and sizes. And here I got an HD SD card, and you can see it went for 119 sections. I added a bunch of CD-ROMs to the system, and each one of those CD-ROMs is an image up to itself. But this is a real-life bulk load image. You can see the very first entry has the drive letter. Each subsequent entry after that has that dash in front of it. Okay, we'll close out of this. iLook should just about be done with doing that image by now. I want to take a look at our log file. Yeah, it took about 2 minutes to do 2 gigs. That's not too bad. We're finished. I am finished with my source data. You should be too if you started with a small thumb drive. I'm going to again select that image, and I'm going to right click, and this time I'm going to delete that image. I don't need it in iLook any longer. And I want to say yes, I want to get rid of it. And you can see iLook successfully deleted media from source data. Okay, to create this bulk load list, we don't need to be in iLook. I'm going to minimize iLook. I am going to go to the command prompt. You can do this in 2 ways. You can go down to the Start menu, and on that bar in the lower left corner, you can type in CMD for command prompt, or if you have it set up, you can go into, I think that's in all programs, administrative tools or someplace like that, and find it. Easiest way if you don't have it on your desktop is to go to the run bar and type in CMD. And I want to go ahead and bring my command prompt up. I'm on my location. Now we put that data in the, trying to remember what drive that was in. Sorry about that. That went to my S drive. So I'm going to go over to my S drive. Oh, thank you. Accessories, that's correct. Thank you. I'm going to type in dir. You can see I have my bulk load image. I'm going to go into that subdirectory. I want to type in cd bulk load image. To get it all typed out there real quickly, I did the tab complete. Just once you've got a couple characters in, press tab, and it'll jump out and find the first item in the list that meets your character set. If you have a bunch of them, you can just tab through it and it'll cycle through the list. I cleared my screen. I'm in bulk load image. I'm going to do a DIR. And here you can see the chunks of my image. Bulk load image 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 15. I'm ready to do this. The command is pretty simple. I want you to type in dir /b/s. We're going to redirect it here in a second, but I want you to see what you're going to get from the results of that command. I just typed it and then pressed enter. You can see I've got the path to the file name in one list. That makes this process very nice and very easy. That big bulk load list I showed you earlier, I created that this same way. I had a number of different folders and I told it to grab them. So, type in dir space /b space /s. We're going to do the redirect, which is the greater than symbol. I'm going to create that file bulk load list. Now you need to give it the extension .bll. That is what iLook is expecting, and we need to provide it to it. So dir space /b space /s space greater than space bulk load list. Once you type that in, press enter. This is real quick. It's really small. It does it in a hurry. And if you want to, you can do a dir again, and you can see we have the bulk load list file now part of that particular folder. We're pretty much done within the DOS box. There's a couple other ways we can go at this point. I want you to go ahead and close your DOS box. Go in through File Manager. I'm going to go to bulk load list case. That's where I stored my image. Wherever you stored your image, go there. I'm going to go into where my image was stored in that folder. And I'm going to select bulk load list.bll. I'm going to do a right click and I'm going to say open with. Well, I've opened up BLLs before. You can open it with whatever you'd like. I have a text editor, a word processor, and WordPad. I want to select WordPad. It goes out and grabs that text file, opens it nicely. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the listing of the bulk load list. That is not part of the bulk load list. It's the file, but it's not part of the list. So we'll highlight that and delete it. Now the next thing we have to have those dashes in front of all the volume IDs for every one but the first image chunk. The way we do that, I've actually got to replace here, or you can do a Control-H. Either one will work. And I want you to type in // for what you're finding. If you have it on a different volume, if you have it in a different folder, put that information in. We want the volume label. And we'll replace it with a /s:/. So what this is going to do is it's going to go out and find the directory letter, the volume label, and replace that letter with dash and the volume label. And we're going to go ahead and replace all. It's finished. It was real quick. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and close out of my replace dialog box. Now at the very top, the very first one, I'm going to delete that dash I just added. So now I have the format for a bulk load list. Save the file. And once you've done that, go ahead and close out of that bulk load list. You can go ahead and close out of your Windows Explorer. Now let's go back into iLook. We'll go back into ILooKIX. The case is still open. I'm going to add evidence. Now I'm going to add the evidence. I'm not going to go in through the evidence dialog box, although I'm going to show you this for a second, just so you know what we're going to do. So we're going to attach an image. I would add an image set, and then if it was an unusual naming convention or the sequences were unusual, I would have to add the individual image sets one at a time. I don't want to do that. What I do need to do, I need to go over to auto processing. This bulk load list is going to bring in a particular image or hundreds of images, depending on how many you have and what you're going to do with them. And it needs to know how to process them. And that's what we're going to set up right now. The auto processing tab allows us to set that up. For this, I want you to turn off XFR. We're not going to probe for lost partitions. I just want to do a quick process of archive and email store. Do not index. I'm going to interpret links, process some XF information, create some thumbnails. I could keep going until I selected everything in here, and iLook would apply these settings to every image. So you do want to select these with a little bit of care. We're not doing indexing. We've only got an hour for this webinar, so we're trying to keep the processing down to a minimum. Save the settings. Okay, at this point, we'll close out of the Add Evidence dialog box. We're going to go over to the Toolbox. As soon as I get there and hover over it, the Toolbox flies out. I'm going to go into my mini apps. I want to select Run Mini App. I'll adjust my dialog box here just a little bit. One of the mini apps that comes with iLook is Add Multiple Image Sets. This is your bulk load list app. You can see it says Process an iLook V8 style bulk load list. File and added a series of image sets. That's exactly what we want to do. I select it, and then up in the upper right corner, we have this little lightning bolt that runs the mini app. Once we click on that, it's going to ask for that bulk load list file we just created. Just clicked on that. Wherever you save that bulk load list is where you want to go to. Once you navigate to it, you notice in the lower right corner, the Windows Explorer program is looking for a bulk load list. I'm going to select it. As soon as I click Open, it's going to start processing. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And there you can see iLook's processing. We're jumped to task progress, and it's gone through and it's added in that thumb drive. Okay.
I got a couple questions for you, Scott, about bulk load lists.
Sure.
If my tool doesn't have bulk load lists, what's an alternative for adding in multiple pieces of evidence that have multiple image set lists?
Multiple pieces of evidence, you have to do it one at a time. It's the only way to do it.
And by adding one at a time, would it process it recursively, or with bulk load lists, does it process everything recursively when it adds everything in?
Bulk load list processes it recursively. It'll go through the entire list, one image at a time, and load it up.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, let me bring up something here. I'm going to close, we're finished with this case, by the way. We could go ahead and process it. We could go look in the file system. and see what's out there. You can see I had some reporting, some software, other things on this particular thumb drive. I have categories in here for different types of files that are on the system. Deconstructible files, this would be like parsing through an email file or something to that effect. There's a number of different types of files that iLook will parse through. I can hash eliminate files, and that's where they show up here. But we're finished with this. We wanted to demonstrate how to create a bulk load list. A little earlier today, I'll go ahead and case close.
Someone has another question about. Before we continue on to XFR, some of our participants had a question about bulk load lists and the process, seeing that it may be slightly complicated and it's not built into the software. Do you think that this process is straightforward, or something that the people at Palestro can integrate so it's easier for one to create a bulk load list?
Oh boy, that's an opinion question. It's possible they could load it, they could add it into the system. Bulk load lists are actually pretty straightforward to create. I just brought one up here. This is that big long one I showed you earlier. I created this entire list in a few minutes, doing the same process we just walked through. As a matter of fact, I'll do it real quickly. Don't try to follow along with me because you don't have the same data I do. Out on in my drive, I've got a drive called my Zero drive. I've got 4 gigabyte thumb drives. I've got a volume shadow service drive. I've got multi-segment images, and some of these are fairly large. What I can do here is going into that process. That was, let's try this out. Sorry about this. I need to keep track of my folders. That was my F drive. There's my drive. Again, dir/b/s. I'm going to redirect it into a file called onthespot.bll. That's all it took. Now, I do have to go in and I have to edit that file a bit. I want to go show you what that looks like at this point. There's my on the spot BLL. There are all the segments in one shot to create a BLL. Now, there's some files out there that I don't want to include, like I've got some text files right here I need to get rid of. The directories show up. Like here's a number of directories. I have to clean those out. But doing that entire list took me like 10 minutes to clean it up and do everything that went along with it.
So worst case scenario, you could have these spread across a network drive with multiple drive letters and have to go and add and find each one individually.
Yes, individually if you're going to do it on a one-by-one basis. Okay, but there you go. That's what it looked like. These are very small images. Could you imagine if you're doing 500 gigabyte drives or multiple Blu-ray drives, CD-ROMs? I can imagine this being used if somebody put a big stack of CDs they picked up in a search warrant into a jukebox that just literally went through one at a time and created ISOs. And you need to look at all of them at once. Do that keyword search, do the skin tone search or something like that, and try and pull it all up. This way it gets loaded in real quick. Okay, I'm going to close out of this. If you have any other questions on this, please, what's that?
Please place it in the Q&A if you have any further questions about bulk load lists.
Let's go play with the XFR demo at this point in time. Okay, XFR Extreme File Recovery is a feature in iLook that allows you to pull out a lot of additional data. We're going to point it at a volume shadow copy service file. That file I sent you was a very small drive. that did have volume shadow service copy files inside that we could look at. So we're going to do that. We're going to look at it and play with it. We're going to need to create a new case. So select Case, New Case. I'm going to call this XFR Demo. For the case description, same thing. Obviously, again, if you're doing a case that you're working on for, again, some suspects, you may need more detail in your descriptions. Case notes, I'm not going to worry about. Case group, again, I'm going to send this to webinar demo. For the case investigator this time, I'm going to make John my investigator. For the case control point, I actually have another folder, another logical volume I've set up for holding the XFR demo. You can use that same one we just had before, it doesn't matter. You can delete the data out if you don't have enough room. This is going to be relatively small. But I do need to create that folder, so I'm going to select the Create Folder option in the upper left corner. And I'm going to call it XFR Demo. Once you've created that folder, go ahead and click OK. How do you do this? Stay up with us, Brian.
Tell us a little bit about XFR, Scott.
XFR is Extreme File Recovery. It's a proprietary function within iLook. It uses a number of different routines and methods to bring out data. It goes and looks for any little tidbit, and I know that's not very accurate, any little tidbit of information that may be indicative of a file or an artifact on the system that may be important to you. And depending upon what the case is, you may find a lot of really good stuff. We do know it goes through the volume shadow service copy, so we're going to look at that. I believe it filters through the B trees to find entries for file systems, and the $30s. And those are just some of the features it does look at. Okay, I've got my XFR demo file created. We'll click OK. So I'll go and build the file system in that folder. Now for evidence, select evidence. And this time we're going to add an image set. Now if you've pulled that image out, it's small. After you unzip it, it's only 50 megabytes. So you can imagine just how small that data was. So I'm adding a new image. I'm not going to start with standard info. I want you to go all the way over to attach image as your first item. I want you to add an image set. Now we need to navigate out to where that data is stored. Now I've stored it under my Z drive. It's called iLook.007 VSS Shadow Drive. And depending on how you extracted that file, you should have that folder. If not, the file you were looking for should be VSS Shadow Drive 001. That's the file I need you to find. Select it and click Open. Now go to the Auto Processing tab right next to it. The first time through, we're going to turn off XFR. So we're going to show you what the difference is if you didn't have XFR versus what was available. And there are no hidden partitions or anything like that, so we'll shut off. Enable Auto Pro for lost partitions. Now to let it find a few things, I want to process archives. I want to process email stores, although there aren't any on there. I want to have a signature and type category created. I want to interpret link files, cookie files, NK2 files, recycle files, office files. There are a bunch of images on there. If there's any EXIF information, we want to see it. I want to have it create thumbnails. Don't want a lot of processing because we have limited time. But that's what I'm going to do on this one. Okay, processing group. All items are just fine. Standard information. as you can see, iLook has already added a name for this. And I want you to change the media name to plain import. Think that works? Plain import. We're not using XFR to any degree. Once you've done that, go ahead and click the OK button. Now, since it didn't use the XFR, there's a little warning. I'm going to click Continue. And iLook is going to go out and get that file and bring it in and show it to us. And I need to turn on the auto probe. Nuts. Okay. I need to turn on the auto probe. I should have left it on. I thought we'd get away with it. I'm going to close it out. If you didn't get the data, go ahead and delete that image. I'll set it back up. Evidence, add image set, attach image. Go grab my data. Auto processing. I'm going to leave that enable auto probe for lost partitions. As you can see there, I've got the data there. I'm going to change the name, just to make sure I don't collide with names. Plain import 2. I'm going to click OK and continue. There we go. 249 different objects within iLook. I open up the file system. You can see I have the file system there. There are 19 objects in this file system. You can see the metadata files for NTFS. I have a folder called My Stuff. That's where the information will be. There's the system volume information as well. I'm going to open up My Stuff. And in there you can see I've got 4 documents in a folder. I also have a folder called More Stuff. And I want to double click and go into there. And these are actually cookie files that we added into the system just to give us some text files to work with, to see. Then I added this one in called My Confession. I'm a really nice person that is just very misunderstood. But so we've got doc files and we've got some text files. This is what you'd see if you didn't process the volume shadow copy service. Now watch what happens when we go through and add this file back in. We'll add the file back in. And this time I'm going to add in, run the XFR on it. So now go back up to evidence. I'm going to select that. I'm going to add my image set. I'm going to attach that image. I'm going to add the image set itself. Still just that one block. Under auto processing, we're going to change this just a little bit. We're going to enable extreme file recovery, and I also want you to hold down the control key and select differential XFR-VSS records.
So Scott, what do we expect to see by selecting differential XFR?
What we'll see is the changes that occur through the system that is recorded in the volume shadow copy service. And it's really impressive what you'll find there. Now, just to kind of make sure I've used the same processing in the previous ones, I'm going to go down and reselect those items one more time. So if you're following along, enable auto probe, map file systems, select extreme file recovery, hold down the control key and select differential XFR. Under file processing options, zip files, iLook, mailbox, mbox, Lotus Notes, etc. And then we're going to select the top 4 under files to deconstruct. Go to standard info. Let's change the name from plain import to diff XFR. That's the one we just did. Once you're done with that, go ahead and click OK and process the file. Now it's going to do some additional processing, so it's going to take a little bit extra time. Really not too terribly long for this one.
No, we're almost finished. We're going to demonstrate the differential XFR and the full XFR, and then that'll be it. So about five more minutes, and then we'll take some Q&As and also answer some of the questions that you all have posted in the Q&A box.
Yep. As a matter of fact, as soon as you see this, you'll go, oh my God, what have I been missing? You'll probably want to go back and process some other of your cases at this point. Now, volume channel service copy was available in what? Vista 7 and is currently in 8, although it's just slightly changed in 8. Now, you got plain import right there. First off, notice we got 868 files versus 249. Sorry, objects, not files. Under the file system, there's the My Stuff folder that we saw earlier. And there's the More Stuff folder. But take a look at this extra set right here. iLook recovered volume shadow service snapshots. I've got 5 of them in here. I'm going to readjust my screen a little bit so you can see this. And I want to turn on the viewer in the lower right corner. Starting at the top up here. First off, did we have a folder called Pictures before? Or Documents? Both those are gone. Going down to the next one, the next shadow service. I have Documents. There's a bunch of text files. Here's a list of medicines. It was just a text file we added in. These net configuration files are actually net configuration files we had on one of our routers for a very short period of time. You can see we got 4 of them. Under Pictures, I recovered a whole host of different pictures that were out there that we didn't see before. Going down to the next snapshot. Documents is empty. Pictures is there, but it's actually changed a bit. If you look at the one before that, you can see we've lost 1 file. Which one? In this case, it was that dog picture. What was it? This guy right here? This guy right there? Yeah. The dog picture got removed. Continuing on a little farther, there's our documents. There's our pictures. And now I've gone through GIFs into that subdirectory. And last but not least, there's the docx files. And currently, what do we have? Those docx files are sitting in My Stuff. So if I look at this, I take a look at the time that are associated with these things, I can get the progression of what happened to that folder. And the times and dates can be found under Properties. Or if you need to check the actual files, you can check the file properties as well. That's using XFR to process the volume shadow service copy.
So without using XFR, Scott, one may potentially miss a piece of evidence that can help solve their case.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, you can see, to some degree, the evolution of what's going on that hard drive. Maybe files are getting, as we did, renamed and moved, and this could show you that. Well, we could go through and do the full one, but apparently we're getting close to our time now. We said we'd go an hour. If you have any questions, we're up to seeing them and working with them.
Scott, it's Catherine here. I do have a few comments and questions that came through during the program. And first of all, I wanted to let everybody know who's still online that we have recorded this program for playback. So if there were areas that you needed to revisit to see how he maneuvered through, if it was too fast for you, we have that recorded, and you will be receiving a link that will direct you to that recording. So, one question was, is there a class planned on creating mini apps?
We've talked about it, and it's actually going to be part of an advanced class for iLook.
Okay.
You do need to know some programming skills. It isn't for the faint of heart.
All right. Then I have here a question. Is it advisable to create the C point on the same drive your case image is stored on or not?
That's a very interesting discussion. I think it is. That way you can have everything together. But you could easily say that it's a better idea to have the data separated for organizational purposes. 6 of one, half dozen the other. I suggest you go along with whatever your department dictates.
Okay, and when you were talking about the bulk load list, this is a comment that came in. It said, I think it's important to note that BLLs are not necessary for fewer than 99 image chunks, as long as all chunks are on the same volume and directory.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. iLook will look through the current directory and go through 0 to 99. As long as they're in decimally incremented, one at a time, it'll work great. If you had 99 chunks and they were set up on an alphabetic chunking system, you might need a bulk load list.
And this is a comment that came in when we were talking about the multiple parts of the image. The comment was, if there are multiple parts of the image, they all will load in the normal image loading system. Only when you have multiple images from different devices do you need to use the bulk load list. So to answer the question about multiple parts of the image, it is done for you. And that came from one of the listeners.
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Again, if you just select the first one, iLook will automatically select all the subsequent image chunks if they're numbered correctly. If you just select the first one of each one of them, they'll all load in.
Okay. We've got some other questions coming in. Let me ask you one quick one here, and then I'll ask some others. I downloaded the zip file. What's a good program to open an ASB file?
I'm sorry, I was trying to get the information here. What was the question again?
The person says, I downloaded the zip file, so what is a good program to open an ASB file?
You're going to need iLook.
ASB is a proprietary format created from iXimager.
That being said, Perlustro is changing their image storage format to a VDI, which is a publicly available open source image format that can be loaded into iLook or any of the other forensic suites. That's due out any time now. And iLook will automatically load them in. As a matter of fact, we do have a couple images we already load in that are VDI. Works great. Brings them in fast.
Okay, I've got 4 more here. What are the differences between the bulk load lists and FTK, where you point the program to a folder that contains images?
You know, I haven't compared those two. I work with FTK, I work with NCase and iLook, and
Okay.
I haven't compared those features. So I can't
Okay.
give you a really good answer for that.
Okay. Let's see. Well, and a couple of these other questions do speak to FTK. Like, what is the difference, if you know, what is the difference between the XFR VSS and the similar functionality that's in FTK 5.1?
We actually haven't got a copy of FTK 5.1 in our office that we can test. So I can't answer that one.
All
I think we
righty.
got one in here. There's a comparison between NCase, FTK, and iLook. One of the really wonderful things I think about iLook, I'm not going to say anything bad about NCase or FTK. They're both wonderful programs in their rights. iLook has a fantastic filtering and categorizing feature. It's some of the fastest finding of files and data I've run into. I really do like that feature within iLook. What was another one we were talking about?
Obviously, XFR is
the XFR,
a powerful tool within iLook to recover files that if you didn't run XFR, you wouldn't know that they existed.
And
right. I had a comment. I just wanted to share with you, I had a comment that came in that says no one else will process the VSS, and that XFR finds more.
It finds a lot more. If you point it at a full image of a Windows drive, it finds huge amounts of data. Got in here, somebody asked about Apple backup files. Those are the DMG files, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, iLook will process those files.
Okay.
Bring them in, and you can work with them wonderfully.
Now,
Go ahead.
I wanted you to talk about classes, and one lead-off question about future classes. Do you have any plans for the UK?
NW3C does not have any plan for the UK at this point in time. We got to talk to Perlustro about that sort of thing, and we probably won't at any time in the real near future, maybe in the near future.
But obviously, go to our website, check out for future trainings, and also if you would like an interest in having it outside the United States, obviously contact us, and we'll get in contact with Perlustro and try to work something out so that way some form of training will go out outside of the U.S.
Obviously, we have a couple high-end users for FTK and NCase, talking about the BLLs and the FTK image folders. Yep, got it right. As long as the segment numbers are below 99, you're good to go. Okay, we'll see.
Scott, say I'm not an iLook user, and I like this demo, and I like the tool. I go to Perlustro.com, purchase a tool. What type of hardware is required to run this tool?
Well, obviously, the bigger, the better the system, the better off you are. The more RAM, the more sheer processing power, the better off you are. On the other hand, we're running these things off of really teeny computers for the system. We wouldn't suggest you use it for working a server, but if you've got a small machine, you could go and get a $500–600 laptop and work with iLook. We wouldn't recommend it, mind you, but it does function.
But for those of us that are on a budget, we could go to a big box store and purchase something off the shelf within reason, and iLook will run.
The couple things that you really need is you need lots and lots of RAM. There's a lot of database files, and you're working with big images anyways, so the more RAM, the better. Somebody asked if iLook has been approved in court. I do not know if I'm sure it's gone through court, and the files and that processing has been accepted in court. Whether the courts have said yes it is or not, I can ask Jim Baker about that, and if they need further information, they certainly can talk to us, and we'll get them that detail.
One more thing for any iLook users, there's a forum that you can reach through Perlustro.com, and we advise you to go and sign up for the forum. That way you can post questions, and all iLook users can have a chance to answer those questions and share what works for them and what doesn't work for them with using iLooKIX.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm just going to close up here by a few things. We do have one person that says that he has used it and has testified in court as an expert with it, so therefore, in his experience, it has been accepted in court for his casework. And I wanted to let folks know that this perhaps might be, Scott and John, a series of webinars. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, thank you. NW3C is going to try and create a series of webinars, and us working with iLook, we're going to try and hold one about once a month. We are trying to come up with some good ideas of what you might want to see. We came up with talking about
VC and case management is probably going to be our next one, and preceding this webinar, you'll have a chance to comment on some other areas we want to talk about, what you want us, and then if there isn't anything on that list, a chance for you to add what you would like to see in future webinar series.
We're also, one of the other ones we're looking at is raids, how to bring a raid into iLook.
All right, so I
Would
wanted
you be able to get a webinar on email containers and processing? Absolutely, not a problem.
All right.
Somebody says, can you open EO1 images? Absolutely. iLook will bring in EO1s all day long. If you have more than 99, then you need to use a bulk load list or an image set list.
All right, gentlemen, we need to go ahead and end this program. What I wanted to say is there will be a survey at the end of this program. If you would please take some time to fill it out. Also, we have a general email for our webinars, and it would be webinars@NW3C.org. If you put your email address in when you were registering today, I will be able to send you the link to the recording. And also, if you have additional comments that you would like to share with us on this program or any of the services that we provide, or any other webinars you'd like to see in the future, I would like for you to email us at webinars@NW3C.org, and we will make sure that somebody reaches back out to you. But Scott and John, thank you very much for your time and your expertise, and everybody, thank you for sharing part of your day with us.